If you're a fan of the Marvel or DC cinematic universes, you're probably aware that while each franchise has a lot of movies, there are very few that feature a female protagonist. Between the two franchises, there are over 50 movies, 7 of which feature female protagonists. Note, I'm not counting Ant-Man and the Wasp, as the Wasp was a co-lead and I want to focus on sole leads. I'm also not going to be talking about Birds of Prey very much because that one featured a villain and I want to focus on the heroes. DC beat Marvel to the punch, releasing their first female-led movie in 2017, Wonder Woman. The movie featured Gal Gadot and received positive reviews from the audience and critics. The movie also performed well in the box office, grossing over $800 million. 2 years later, in 2019, Marvel released their first movie with a female protagonist. Captain Marvel was released at the height of Marvel's popularity. Brie Larson portrayed the titular character, and while its reviews were not as positive as they were for Wonder Woman, the movie was a massive box office success, grossing over $1 billion. In 2021, 2 years later, Marvel would release their second female-led superhero movie with the Black Widow project. Drama ensued regarding the movie not being a theatrical release, Disney deciding to release it instead on their new Disney Plus streaming platform. However, the movie still received positive reviews from both critics and the audience. Then in 2022, Marvel released the Black Panther sequel, focusing on the character Shuri. It was another box office success, grossing over $800 million and receiving more positive reviews from the critics and audience. In 2023, Marvel released The Marvels, the sequel to the Captain Marvel movie. While the first Captain Marvel movie came at Marvel's peak in popularity, The Marvels was released at arguably Marvel's lowest point. This film was the first in this list of theatrical releases that bombed at the box office. This movie only grossed $206 million against a production budget of $374 million. However, the reviews on Rotten Tomatoes still remained relatively high, once again making me doubt the reliability of these Rotten Tomatoes scores.
That don't make no sense.
Looking back at these movies, it does appear that most of them were well received and liked and were commercial successes for their respective franchises. In reality though, they all sucked. I hated all of them. None of these movies were very inspiring or well crafted. Captain Marvel was the one that I didn't mind the first time watching, but even that hasn't aged super well for me. Post Endgame, many Marvel fans agree that the creators in the MCU have become lazy with their storytelling, and most movies have been insultingly bad.
You've got to do better, Senator.
It was an unfortunate coincidence that at the same time they became lazy, they also decided to crank out a few more female-led projects. This resulted in 3 female-led movies, Black Widow, Wakanda Forever, and The Marvels, being crummy movies. Also post-Endgame, Disney started really focusing on creating Disney Plus original series to hopefully direct traffic to their new streaming platform. Many of the series were created to introduce or focus on other female characters, such as Ms. Marvel, Hawkeye, Echo, and Agatha All Along. These all suck as well. Hawkeye was the least egregious of all of them, but still wasn't great. Marvel didn't do any of their female-led projects justice, and neither has DC. But why did all of these projects suck, you may be asking? Why did they fail all these female protagonists? Analyzing all of these female superheroes and their stories, I believe I have boiled things down to 3 key failures. The first major failing that I have identified is related to what the internet has coined as the girl boss narrative a lot of these movies have followed. I don't really like the term girl boss, but it is essentially just referring to characters that are already written to be perfect the way that they are and they don't require a character arc. About the time Marvel came out with Captain Marvel, Disney and Hollywood as a whole were deep into this idea that women were epic girl bosses that didn't need a character arc and were amazing and perfect as they were. In Captain Marvel, the main conflict that she had was just needing to be herself and realize just how powerful she was. There was no character arc or growth. She was already amazing and just needed to see that for herself. And then boom, she finally decided to just be at her full potential, just like that. No hard work, no development, no earning it. Her full potential was just there for the taking as soon as she wanted to. Other stories have suffered from the same problem as well, such as Echo and Wanda. Okay, let me back up. Not every story needs their character to have an internal personal conflict. There are characters that don't need a huge character arc, rather they need to stand their ground and stay as they are. Some examples are Captain America, Spider-Man, Superman, and branching outside of the superhero genre, Rita Ratowski or Tamina from Prince of Persia. And that's a more niche one, but I stand by it. All of these characters know what's right, are challenged by external forces, but remain unwavering in their conviction convictions and their beliefs. They don't change, they change those around them instead. They remain steadfast in what they believe is right, fight hard to accomplish a noble mission, and convince those around them that this is the right thing to do. This is a character story that I do very much enjoy when it is done right. So it is possible to create a compelling character story where the character does not need change and does not need an arc. This is not what Captain Marvel did, however. Captain Marvel was a very passive character. There was no noble quest, no mission she was trying to accomplish from the get-go, no huge opposition she was fighting against, people telling her she was wrong. Rita Vertowski has a mission. Her entire focus was winning the war no matter what, and she, through her actions and determination, changed Will's character to believe in this mission as well. Captain Marvel's character had no such mission or goal. So she is a character that needs a character arc. She's not like Captain America, who knew what was right, knew what to do, and needed to plant himself like a tree and tell others to move. In her movie, she didn't know what was right and what to do because she didn't even have the correct information regarding the Skrulls. Her story was not about her moral fortitude, it was about her needing to discover that she is amazing and powerful and just needs to realize that. And that is how I define this girl boss theme that they have had. And that is key failure number one. The second, more egregious failure was turning some of them into villains. There were a couple of female characters that were given pretty great treatment at the start, then were suddenly turned into villains, even though it didn't make much sense. It made no sense, actually. The first woman that they did this with was Agent 13, the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent introduced in Captain America: The Winter Soldier. She was a somewhat minor character in this movie, but it was pretty clear that she was one of the good guys. She made a brave choice in turning against S.H.I.E.L.D. to assist Captain America, joining and supporting him through both the second and third Captain America movies. She would disobey orders given from S.H.I.E.L.D. to give him intel that he needed. Her character shared the same values and ideals that Captain America had, and even helped Captain America to stay true to his beliefs. At Peggy's funeral in the Civil War movie, Captain America was going through a tough time as it was. The Avengers were faced with signing the Sokovia Accords, which would essentially sign away the Avengers' ability to act freely. Captain America thought this was a bad idea, not wanting to be told when he could or couldn't react to potential threats. The problem was some of the Avengers, mainly Iron Man, were going to sign it. So Captain America was grappling with what to do. While he was dealing with this, Agent 13 spoke at the funeral and said something that Steve needed to hear.
Even if everyone is telling you that something wrong is something right, even if the whole world is telling you to move, it is your duty to plant yourself like a tree, look them in the eye and say no. You move.
This is a line in the comics that Captain America originally said, but I think it was a good move to have this be an external reminder for him. I think Steve knew that he was not going to sign the Accords all along, but it must have been nice to see that there were others that were similar to him. There were others that would stay strong in their values and beliefs and would not waver, no matter how much pressure they were placed under. Captain America found a moral equal in Agent 13. Cut to the Falcon and the Winter Soldier TV series. Agent 13 is a criminal broker with no morals. Nice. Their explanation that was given as to why she turned criminal was that she was not pardoned for her actions in helping Captain America in Civil War. Bucky was pardoned though, so that doesn't really make any sense, but don't think about it too much. Because of this, she did a complete 180 on all her morals and ideals and is now a villain. They completely ruined her character. Was she a somewhat minor character? Sure, but was she written to be a moral, good character that always did the right thing even if it was difficult? Yes. So does this make sense that they took this pretty awesome moral character and just decided that she would be a villain now? No, it was stupid. If Agent 13 could so easily be turned into a villain, this character that was just as moral and just as Captain America, then they could turn any hero into a villain at the drop of a hat. This is bad writing and a pretty blatant character assassination. Another character that went from good to evil real quick was the Scarlet Witch. Some fans of the comics might defend this one. I don't care. This was stupid. Wanda was introduced in Age of Ultron and was on the opposing side of our heroes. She and her brother were initially against the Avengers, and more specifically Iron Man. They teamed up with Ultron until they realized that Ultron didn't just want to destroy the Avengers, he wanted to destroy the whole world. This led them to turn against Ultron and join the Avengers. Once their enemy, she was able to find friends, safety, and mentorship in the Avengers. In Civil War, she was viewed by the public as dangerous. The Avengers tried to help her ignore those noises and realize that she was a good person. Both Hawkeye and Captain America served as mentors to her, helping her to see what was right and take take action. They could see that she was a good person, she just needed a little guidance and encouragement. Along with Agent 13 in Civil War, she sided with Captain America and decided to not sign the Sokovia Accords, thus becoming a fugitive but believing that this was the right thing to do. She was introduced as an antagonist but soon became a great hero and ally for the Avengers. However, they decided that despite all evidence, she was clearly going to turn into a villain. This was sloppily set up in the Wanda TV show. The show depicted her as broken and lost since Endgame when Vision died. In her despair, she used her magic to craft a perfect town where she could live out her dream life with Vision. This town was all fake and the community was being controlled by her magic. I was a bit perplexed about what this show was trying to accomplish with Wanda when it first came out. I wasn't sure if at this point she was truly evil and malicious or if she was somewhat oblivious. At first, she seemed unaware that she was in control of everything, confused at all the things she was seeing and the inconsistencies in this fake world. Sort of like a Truman Show situation. I've never actually seen that movie, but I think this is a good comparison. But then I think we see that she is totally aware of everything and just didn't care that she was trapping all these innocent people. This show was a bit odd and was essentially just a lot of setup for the next project, specifically the Doctor Strange sequel, Multiverse of Madness. If you too were a bit confused about the WandaVision TV show, the Doctor Strange movie didn't really help. This movie was terrible. The worst Marvel movie I've ever seen. In this movie, Wanda is no longer portrayed as just broken and devastated. She is now full-on evil. She is terribly corrupt and is using the Darkhold, some magic evil book of evil stuff, to do evil things. She wants her kids back, the ones that were in the fake town, and will do whatever it takes to get them. First of all, I think her becoming a villain was a real dumb idea to begin with. Second of all,
and secondly,
her path to becoming a villain was not set up very well at all. Before WandaVision, she was a good character. She had morals, she wanted to help people, save people, do the right thing. Then in WandaVision, we see that she is lost and grieving and doing weird stuff like forcing a whole town of people to live through different sitcoms. Then after releasing the town, she then uses the Darkhold for magic stuff and then becomes corrupted and now is just full on evil. It just didn't work for me. I thought it was forced and didn't make sense for her character. There are plenty of characters in the MCU that have lost everything. Everything. They grieve in different ways. Thor turned into a drunk, sad gamer. Not a fan of that choice, but okay. Captain America turned to finding his next mission and joining S.H.I.E.L.D., finding what was familiar to him and remaining a soldier. Hawkeye hunted down criminals as Ronin, but none of them lost all their morals and turned into a maniac that is willing to kill innocent civilians to get what they want. Until Wanda. Them trying to use the Darkhold as an excuse for this villain arc was pretty lazy. Wanda was a good person. I absolutely hated this villain arc for her. And not just because it was a bad setup, but because I believe her character was too good and strong to turn to such evil. Note, I'm not sure if I would put Shuri in this category, although she wasn't really acting like much of a hero in her story either. Anyway, these two characters, Agent 13 and Wanda, and their turn to evil was not creative. It was not thought-provoking and deep. It was cheap, lame, and ruined two amazing characters. And that is the second failure. Final main failure was creating copycats. Let me rephrase. Creating lazy copycats. I'm sure we're all aware that many of the female superheroes we see are just essentially the female version of a male superhero. She-Hulk is the female version of Hulk, Kate Bishop is the female version of Hawkeye, Ironheart is the female version of Iron Man, etc., etc. These female characters, their costumes, powers, etc. are derived from the original male characters. Hear me out though. This is not necessarily a bad thing. This can actually work out really well if the writers aren't lazy. It's just unfortunate that a lot of these copycat characters were introduced into the MCU when they became incredibly lazy. Because the characters are essentially just the female version of the original male characters, they will inevitably be compared to the original and will most likely fall short. I personally think though that these characters can work if they follow these three guidelines. Number one, don't make an exact copy in their personalities. Great differences in these characters compared to the original. This female character needs to have differences in their personality and their philosophies. Number two, don't create this character as a simply better version than the original. Number three, create a relationship between these characters before they become a copycat. And on that last one, I don't necessarily mean a blood relationship, though it could be, but also creating a mentor-student relationship works as well. Shuri as the Black Panther may also be considered a copycat, but in her story, the title of Black Panther is passed down according to their tradition. So I don't really think I want to place this in the copycat category. I will say Shuri's new role as the Panther was not written very well, and this movie had a lot of issues. In short, the same powers but a girl might not be the most interesting way to create new female characters, but it can work. Marvel just hasn't been able to figure it out and execute it very well. You may have noticed that I didn't list Shuri in any of these three failure categories, but I think her character comes close. While her story didn't necessarily fit perfectly into these three categories that I created. There were many failings and issues with the writing of the movie, and they did not write her to have a very compelling arc. The villain was also just so lame. I mean, come on.
This guy sucks.
And there are other movies and shows that were female-led that, while they also didn't fit perfectly into these three categories, just weren't written very well. Black Widow, The Marvels, WandaVision. None of the movies or shows that are female-led in the MCU were well-written, compelling masterpieces. Not when you compare them to Captain America, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, No Way Home, etc. And the stories didn't suck because they were female-led. They sucked because the writing became lazy and the quality of these movies and shows started to decrease. With the exception of Captain Marvel, which was done before Endgame. And this was probably the least egregious of the female-led projects. Before the quality of Marvel took a nosedive, we received lots of well-written female characters that were side characters or co-stars. The Wasp in Ant-Man and the Wasp, Gamora, Nebula, the Ancient One, all fantastic. Tough to pick a favorite, but Nebula might be up there.
Go get Kevin Bacon.
I've got it.
Don't kill him.
Can't outrun me, Bacon!
Anyway, we still have yet to receive a really great female-led movie from the MCU. Has DC given us one? A lot of people think yes in the Wonder Woman movie. I am not a lot of people, and I think no. I watched this movie for the first time years after it's released, and I hated it. And no, not because of Gal Gadot's acting. I just wasn't very moved by the story or the characters. The character Wonder Woman didn't inspire me. Her arc was... well, what was her arc? As I said before, a character story can be written well even if they don't necessarily have an arc like Captain America. And I think that's what they were going for here, where Wonder Woman was just inherently a good moral character. But they didn't give her enough opposition and pushback to make that work. If your character is meant to be the walking moral compass and that's their whole deal, you need to give them lots and lots of opposition. The story also requires that she inspires others and changes their minds to become better people. That's what I think her story was missing. She was the moral compass with no opposition, or at least not that much opposition, and it was boring. This would put her in the first category of failures. The really needed a character arc but didn't have one category. The other DC movies that were female-led were Birds of Prey and the Wonder Woman sequel, which were just bad. As I've said before, I don't really want to talk about Birds of Prey because it focused on Harley Quinn, and the Wonder Woman sequel was just dumb. This one is going to be put in a new category of dumb and or forgettable, like so many others. The way I see it, both of these superhero franchises have failed to give us a really solid female-led movie, which is why I desperately need them to crush it with Supergirl. Pretty please. And here's why I think that they will. From what I've seen in the trailers and what I know about Supergirl, I don't think her story will fall into these three categories of failure that Marvel and DC have struggled with in the past. The girl boss one. We already know that Supergirl is not starting off like Superman, like a walking moral compass. She's a drunk that's hit rock bottom, is in desperate need of a character arc. Superman is the Captain America, Supergirl is the Iron Man. I don't think we need to be concerned that the story will just treat her like she's perfect when she's not.
Let's be honest, babe, it's not a very high bar to clear.
Or make her a passive, boring character in her own movie. It seems like the writers understand that she needs to grow as a character and learn to be a better person and hero.
Revenge. It won't take your pain away.
I don't believe her character will get the Captain Marvel or Wonder Woman treatment where they just raise her and say she's already at her prime and she's good enough. Supergirl sucks right now. She's a drunk, she's lost, broken, and isn't living a healthy lifestyle. She has flaws, and I think we're going to see an amazing transformation and lots of character growth from her. What I find funny and a little annoying is that there are other movie fans and movie reviewers that hate how Captain Marvel was treated and wanted her to have flaws to overcome. Then Supergirl is created with a lot of flaws to overcome, and those same people say that Supergirl shouldn't have these flaws. I've heard a lot of people complaining that she's a drunk and she's a loser and this isn't what Supergirl should be.
You're never happy, are you?
Homie, she's gonna have an awesome redemption arc. You just gotta wait for the movie to come out. Do you want these female characters to have flaws to overcome or not? Also, how well do you think you'd handle it if you watched your entire planet slowly die? It's not like she got to this point for no good reason. The other failing of becoming a villain is not something that we need to worry about either. She is currently grieving and lost, but she's not a villain. I don't think we need to worry about her turning into a villain in her debut movie into the DC universe. And I also don't think we need to worry about her turning into a villain down the road either. I think that they're going to keep her as a superhero, and that's that. So I don't believe that we'll have to worry about her getting the same treatment that Agent 13 or Wanda received in the MCU. I mean, maybe they will. Maybe at the end of this movie, she's going to become a villain. Who knows? And lastly, while she essentially is the female version of Superman, her character can still work. Of all the copycat-like characters, her makes the most sense. She didn't get her powers from her cousin, like She-Hulk. Because she is Kryptonian, she received receives powers from the yellow sun, just as Superman does. The story was written in such a way that her powers aren't derived from Superman, they both receive them due to their biology. They're given these powers and need to both learn how to use them and earn them. And they both handle this in different ways because they're very different characters with very different upbringings, which is good because it would be rather boring if her personality, beliefs, philosophies, etc. were just the exact same as Superman's.
He sees the good in everyone. And I see the truth.
Supergirl is very different from Superman, but not better. From what we can see from the trailer, the movie will definitely compare the two cousins, and Supergirl definitely doesn't see eye to eye with Superman on a lot of things. But the story is not trying to convince the audience that Superman is wrong and Supergirl is better. In fact, I think it might be saying that Superman is right and Supergirl needs to find her people. Overall, I'm very excited to see this movie, see the growth and the change that Supergirl will experience, and finally, hopefully, receive our first well-written, well-executed, female-led superhero movie. Here's hoping, and I'm definitely coming back to talk about this movie as soon as it's released. But what do you guys think? Are you excited for Supergirl? Do you think this could be our first good female superhero movie? Or do you think that one of the previous ones was already the best female-led superhero movie ever? What do you guys think? Let me know.